to call to order the Middletown City Council special meeting for, almost said Tuesday, Friday, January 21st, 2022. If we could start with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll for us?
Mr. Farrell.
Here.
Ms. Nenny.
Here.
Mr. Moon. Mr. Muterspaw.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. I'd like to make a motion to excuse Councilmember Moon.
Oh, second.
Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll for us?
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Okay, this evening, afternoon, let's, we're going to start with, we don't really have an agenda per se, so the agenda is really citizen comments, and then we'll go into the legislation, or do you want to read that first?
We need to receive and file the special.
Oh, let's do that. So how do we do that? Do I have to sign that first before anything's official?
You can, and then we'll just need a motion and a second, and we'll have a roll call vote.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the special meeting documents.
I'll second.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Need a pen?
That one's official, and then everyone has to sign this one, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just pass that around. And we'll...
May have borrowed a pen.
Okay, do we want to go, I don't know if we put in order on the agenda of whether we're going to do citizen comments first or after. I know the citizens haven't had a chance to review all of this, because council just received it as well.
On the agenda, it does say citizens' comments. I left a copy of the ordinance and a staff report with every agenda, so that
Okay.
everyone had a chance to pick it up as they came in.
Okay.
Since we got it so late. It has also been posted on the website. Right after I sent it to you, I posted it, I updated everything on the website. So it's up to you if you want to change the order. That's clearly your prerogative.
I
But
think it would be beneficial to have it read, it was about 30 minutes ago, so I just want to make sure that the citizens are fully informed before they come and comment. I hope we only have two of them. Does that sound okay with you guys? So you understand what we're even fully discussing? Okay, if you don't mind.
Will we be receiving the presentation and the?
Yeah, I mean, my goal would be to have staff explain the ordinance in front of us, and then before we even motion or anything like that, to go ahead and let the citizen comments be heard. Does that sound okay with everyone? Okay, will Mr. Burke be the one present, or I
I
guess,
think
no.
Carly's going to read the ordinance
Okay,
first.
ordinance, and then you'll probably talk
And
about the
then
staff
just keep
report.
in mind, before you do make a motion, we'll need to waive the charter provisions and make it a special, and then read
Okay.
the ordinance later.
Okay, we'll do that for sure. Thank you.
This is an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Freya's Hen House, a nonprofit organization, to provide a short-term warming shelter for the homeless and declaring an emergency. Be it ordained by City Council of the City of Middletown, Butler, Warren Counties, Ohio, that the city manager is hereby authorized to enter into a contract with Freya's Hen House to provide a short-term warming shelter for the homeless through April 30th, 2022, in accordance with the revised proposal being provided to the police chief. The contract shall be in a form approved by the city manager and law director. This contract is also contingent upon all required permits being obtained for use of the space in this manner at 1009 Grove Street. Funds are available for this project in the Community Development Act 1974 Fund, and City Council hereby approves the use of funds for said purpose. The Finance Director is hereby authorized to pay a sum not to exceed $82,795 from the Community Development Act 1974 Fund, Fund Number 429. This ordinance is declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of the public health, safety, and general welfare, to wit, to allow the agreement to be signed without delay so that the warming shelter can open for the benefit of the homeless during the remaining winter months and shall be in full force and effect from the date of its adoption.
Thank you. Chief Burke, are you going to be explaining this to us?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate it.
think you're on.
I'm on now. Thank you, Mayor and council members. So this started probably back in December when we started looking for a warm shelter. We have COP working with several homeless throughout the city. We're working with one city. And with Shalom not helping this year because of the COVID, we were looking for a shelter. We tried the Central Avenue location. That was one location we looked at, and then we came forward with the location on Grove Street. Last minute proposal on Tuesday night by them. We think it's their best option. It's in the location where we need to be. We don't have to worry so much about the transportation because all the services were within several blocks of the area. Working with Erica Newton, they came up with a proposal. Working with the fire department, one of the proposals they would have to have either a fire suppression system or a fire personnel there at all hours of the evening while they're sleeping. We added that into the proposal. So what we're looking for is the $82,795 to be used from the ARPA funds to fund the warming shelter. We did say 99 days, but we still have to follow through with some of the fire codes and also prepare the building through the permit occupancy. And once that's complete, we should be ready to open.
Okay, so should we go ahead and do citizen comments and then I don't know, it's kind of a different order, but does that sound okay? Let's do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, we've got 2 citizen comments this afternoon. The first one being from Adrian Shearer.
My name is Adrienne Shear. My office is at 1028 Central Avenue, and I'm kind of right in the heart of where everybody thinks that the homeless issue is the hottest. Not necessarily so, but that's where people feature it to be. Anyway, every year we go through some kind of emergency. What are we going to do, especially since COVID happened? And I'm just here today to say I'm thrilled that we're looking at a warming center. I'm hoping that the people who are at the warming center will get information about all of the services that are already available in our community to them and help them get to them. And I would like to say to the city council, anybody on the city staff, if and when we decide it's time to do something permanent about this issue, I would love to dedicate my time to helping with that. I got some good ideas. Trust me, I do.
Thank you. Our next citizen comment is Mr. Chris Batty.
Good afternoon. Chris Batty, 128 Marymount Court, Middletown, Ohio. On the topic of today's vote, I do agree that emergency votes have been abused in the past, and we need to get away from those. It is unfortunate that failures in the planning on this item have led to what seems like a do-or-die situation when we've known for a long time that the cold was coming, as it does every year, and that we have a homeless problem which has existed for many years. I do agree that we must start from a place of compassion for those in need. But next, we must be diligent. We must care more for the person's overall care and trajectory of their life. There is a long history of giving handouts across our country that have actually worsened and encouraged homelessness as it creates dependency. I'm a big proponent of giving hand-ups, not handouts, meaning that there needs to be something else attached to this outreach that will help them to take the next steps in getting clean, sober, cleaned up physically, financially, and getting employment and being a citizen who contributes to our community. This is why I love the idea of partnering with Hope House and filling any vacancy that they have there first and foremost. And I do appreciate the council members that have reached out to Hope House and other churches and organizations to try to find alternative solutions. A few questions that I believe we need to answer in order to make an informed and wise decision and to be good stewards of the money of the city and the taxpayers. One, first of all, I just want to appreciate the comments made by council to call out that ARPA is not free money. It is taxpayers' money. And until staff and council collectively don't view these funds as just free money, but rather the money that the whole city has and clearly define all the uses for it, how can we make diligent decisions with it? 2, do we have a process for identifying all the current homeless people in the city? 3, does the process capture enough info about these folks to help us understand who wants the most help? 4, does this process include a connection to a program that will support them taking next steps to getting on their feet? 5, does this process include requirements that create enough of a barrier to entry to help drive accountability and success, i.e. drug and alcohol testing, taking a class, going to a daily meeting? 6, there has been a long history of just throwing money at a problem and hoping to fix it. So how do we make sure that this is true investment in the people that want, not just a Band-Aid that will leave all these folks with the same gaping wound that the homelessness had before we started? I thought that was my buzzer, sorry. Promise I'm almost done. 7, finally, can we say with integrity that the people helped by this 60, 70, or 82,000 spent will be any better off 3 to 6 months, 9 months, 12 months from now? If the answer is no, then I would encourage the council to take these into consideration on a no on this vote, and instead use this money wisely to develop a longer-term plan, such as the previous speaker said, to plan ahead with Hope House, other churches, organizations, etc. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you. So with that, do we have any, and just to catch Mr. Polnick up to speed, we did read the ordinance as well as the staff report. Chief Burke provided that to us. We thought we'd give our citizens the chance to hear that before they spoke. So we're at that point. We haven't heard from council yet. So are there any comments from council? Anyone like to speak?
I'd like to start if it's okay. Bear with me, I'm still not feeling well, but Mr. Moon's near, so I felt I had to be here. I'm going to vote yes on this, simply for the fact is I believe it's one of our responsibilities to help those who need it. I know that this is a temporary measure, and we have not achieved success in Middletown the last few years dealing with the homeless. We've actually failed the community, we've failed the city, and that includes me as the police chief and as a council member, and we got to do better. But with that in mind, I have faith in this plan simply because I have faith in the police and fire chief, and they advise this is the best place, this is the best function, this is the best location. What I'm disappointed about, and what I'm hearing the most about from our constituents in the community, is the emergency legislation. We're in mid-January, it's been cold for a month, 2 months. And I understand, I'm glad we're doing something about it now. But when we have constant emergency legislation, it just kills the trust of the community. These processes are in place, simply put, because it gives the public an opportunity a month to hear what we're doing, to come up with their plan, to give input and suggestions. And when we take that away because of an emergency measure, we're taking away their right to be heard and their right to know what's going on. I'm a big believer in emergency legislation when we have to have it, such as the SAFER grant the other night with the fire department. Those grant deadlines, I know they come in at the last minute. Sometimes we have to do that. But in something like this, it makes the public believe that there's something behind the scenes. Even if there's not, it's the perception. Also, we have a change of plan. I know costs change, and that's what's happened here. It's a different cost than what we were told the other day. I appreciate the staff and Amy getting this out to us as quickly as they could, but it's still a change. I will say yesterday, some of us went to Hope House. I met with Tim Williams. We spent about an hour together. There is plans in place. Mr. Batty, you mentioned long-term plans. We met, and there is plans in place. I've also reached out to some churches for food for these people and try to come up with some stuff. The response has been great. And so I'm confident Mr. Williams at the Hope House believes that this location will help them transition people into something more permanent to help them out. It'll be warm in a few months. That gives us plenty of time to come up with a permanent plan. and to make sure that this doesn't happen again under emergency measure and this kind of money. So I'm hoping we'll do that. This is not an indictment on anybody. This is the city as a whole where we have failed. Talking with Mr. Williams yesterday, a couple years ago, I made a post about other cities dropping off homeless, and I was told over and over by people here that it does not occur. It's still occurring. They're Ubering them here now from other cities. And I will tell you, I will not hesitate to call out other cities publicly that are doing this and embarrass them, because they're dropping people here inhumanely like stray dogs is what they're doing. And it becomes our problem, and our police and fire and our public works have to deal with this. The people are getting dropped here from counties and places they've never even been to Middletown, and they're getting dumped here. It's still going on. So those who doubted that needs to go down to the Hope House and talk to the director. He will tell you it's occurring. That's why this is continuing. So we have to do something. And if other cities are doing that, we need to call them out publicly. Because we care about our city, we care about our Middletown people, and it's not fair for our services and our resources to be drained because other cities don't want to take care of their own people. I think it was Mr. Batty mentioned the data. There is data being presented. I know that Chief Burke and his COP team have done a great job with documenting and working hard to make sure that we're trying to take care of the Middletown people the best that we can. The people from out of town, it's harder to track because they don't have IDs. A lot of them don't want to give you information. So that's kind of where we're at with this. I just wanted to get off on my soapbox for a minute as I'm frustrated with it. We have to do better. And I know staff works hard. They really do. But the emergency legislation, we have to make sure in the future we have plans in place so our people can come up to this mic or send emails to be heard. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you.
I also appreciate the comments about the emergency legislation and how it comes to us. And, I think it's always also our responsibility if something does come to us as an emergency measure to be able to say, hey, stop, wait, let's learn more about what's going on here, and let's see if we can come to a resolution. We can call a special meeting like we've done today to try to get more time to figure these things out. And I look forward to being able to spend more time at our strategic planning session, talking about what we've learned from this experience and how it came to fruition and how we can do better in the future to, to plan for this kind of thing in advance with community input and all that comes along with that. So I just want to piggyback on that a little bit to say that I look forward to doing that at the strategic planning session. And it's something that hopefully, we probably should have maybe had more focus on last year at the strategic planning session so that we could have come up with a plan before now. But I also do think that this is something that serves a need in our community for the people who are here. And I know that our police and our COP and Victoria have been working hard to try to find the resources that people need and place them with those resources when they're in a place where they're ready to accept those, because that's a big part of it too. You can give someone a warm place to stay. It doesn't mean that they're gonna want help, but we can offer it and have it available to them. And I think that is, for me, what doing the right thing looks like. So having been a supporter and volunteer at Shalom before, I'm hoping that eventually we can talk to those churches and try to get back to a place where they're able to offer Shalom to our homeless people here in town again, because they do so with such love and compassion and understanding, just to sit down and talk with someone and hear their story and know where they came from and make them feel like a human being. And there are just so many wonderful volunteers from Shalom who've done such good work. And if we can follow their example of how to successfully work a program like this, and I think, again, like you said, food is a big part of that. Several of the comments that I heard back from citizens over the last couple of days mentioned, how are we going to fill their bellies before we give them a warm place to sleep? And I'm very curious to find out if there is a plan in place for that. If we're just looking for volunteers, do we make a call to the volunteer public of Middletown and say, hey, listen, these people are still in need the same way that they always were with Shalom, and they, were donation based for food. So if that's the path, maybe I don't know what the answer to that is, but I was hoping that maybe someone here today might have a good idea for that. So that's all I have for.
For me, 3 words: integrity, compassion, and dignity. Nobody loves an emergency vote. I had 20, 30 people reach out to me in the last few days about it. An emergency vote should be used when it's for the good of the people. And I go back to 3 words: integrity, compassion, dignity. Does this piece of legislation follow all those things? In my opinion, yes. So for that, it's going to be a yes for me. Long term, do we need to plan things out better? We wake up every single day, we get a little bit better, or we get a little bit worse. We never stay the same. I think our city is on the path of getting better every single day, and this piece of legislation right here it honestly goes towards that. So it's going to be a yes for me today. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that did reach out, but I just hope that as a city, we look at integrity, compassion, and dignity from now on. Thank you.
I know it's shocking, but I have a lot of questions. I appreciate, this being put together, and I just want to kind of suss out exactly what's going on a little bit more, because, well, first of all, we did get this 30 minutes ago. So I read it when we got here. Does this include introduction to wraparound services? Is there any effort or staffing hours being put towards that?
Well, the women running the location, yes, they're going to have, they offer services. Their ultimate long-term goal is more of a transitional living type of service. Victoria, our COP officers are going to be involved. By having these individuals, we're going to have a log. They're going to have to check in every night. So we're going to have their name, their information, so we'll have that to follow up with. And then we're also going to have a fire personnel officer there all night long for the evening. So if anybody needs anything, or if there's any medical issue or fire or anything like that, we're going to have them. But yes, we're going to be able to follow up with long-term services for them. But we were just looking for those individuals that wanted to get out of the elements. But we are going to be able to follow up long-term.
Okay, yeah, that's my biggest concern. I see there's only funding for 1 employee for the intake duties, and I just wonder if we aren't better served. I know, shocker, but I'm going to say spending more to have 2 there so that we're actually having an impact on, getting them the services that they need. Because I'm afraid with the 1, that person's going to be focused on all the administrative aspects, but we won't have the chance to actually have the impact on their lives and get them off the street, which is the end goal. And just looking at the cost associated with that is only $64.80 for that intake period. And if we had a second person there, I just think for $64.80 to add a second person, we would probably see more benefit in the whole program.
I think the original proposal had a second person there, but when we had our when we added the fire personnel in the evening hours from 10 to 6 in the morning, we kind of used to supplement the officer for another intake person. But if you would like us to revisit that, we can do that.
From 10 to 6, I imagine, is when people are sleeping and probably not going to be interacting and looking for the services. That was another question, though, too, I had was what is the need for the firefighter?
Part of the fire code, and if Paul Lally here, he could probably answer that more, but they have to have a fire suppression system, and unfortunately they don't have a full sprinkler suppression system. So in place of that, they need to have somebody trained and Paul's coming up now.
Okay, essentially by the fire code, this place cannot be opened. You have to have 4 things: fire suppression system, a fire alarm system, means of egress, and separation of sleeping areas. But those 2 will be taken care of. The problem is the first 2, the suppression system and the fire alarm system, are non-existent. In lieu of that, the authority having jurisdiction, which essentially is the fire chief, can make temporary variances. And one of the things we do when we run into this situation is if the organization we will provide a trained firefighter with inspection, hazardous recognition experience to be on site while it is opened. And that is part of what we said the criteria will be to offer them the certificate of occupancy to be able to do this. There are some other things they know they need to do to make it like the egress areas and some signage. We're also requiring them to have smoke detectors throughout the area. And so the fire watch person is there in case something would happen. They're trained in orderly evacuation and getting people out when needed. So they turned in the certificate of occupancy, it's my understanding, and the chief building official has looked at that. He has got back with them some of the things they need to do to get approval of that, and I know they're going to do a reinspection Monday or Tuesday. Ashley, do you know? Or yeah, I think Monday or Tuesday they'll do a reinspection, and then the chief building official and the fire marshal will sign off on the COO.
Chief, I'm curious. When I look at this number, $43,000, I think to myself, how much would it cost for the building owners to upgrade their system? And is there a better way to accomplish?
For a fire suppression system and a fire alarm system, you're probably talking almost $1 million.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. But in order to open your facility, you're going to have to do that anyway, correct?
Yeah, but it depends if you're, what type of system you're getting in, but
Sure.
can be quite significant.
I'm just wondering if our economic development department couldn't work with this with this business in town in the way that we've worked with other businesses to say, help with the system rather than spending.
But the other problem is to get all that in probably will take several months.
Okay.
It's not going to
Okay.
work before.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
work through that so that people understand why this and not fix the suppression system.
Chief, is the temporary variance, that's at your discretion, like the time length of it?
For fire code,
Fire code?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And you're
With
comfortable?
the authority having jurisdiction, which by Ohio Fire Code is the fire chief of the jurisdiction.
Okay.
Now, there's building code stuff with the chief building code official has to sign off on, and he is who eventually gives the certificate of occupancy.
Makes sense.
Did I hear that there was a quote that maybe we can? Okay. Can you, sorry, because no one will be able to hear you unless it's on a mic, would you mind just coming up and letting us know where that stands? Because that's the first thing I was thinking when a number that high is in there for labor costs. I wonder,
Yeah, and-
and give a capital improvement instead.
So our ultimate goal with that building when we purchased it was for a permanent solution to the homeless problem in the city and with the supportive services, not just to provide them with shelter, but to provide those supportive services. That's already what we do in our business, and have, life skills, counseling, substance abuse if they need it, resources, to provide them with the tools they need to, not perpetuate the cycle of the homelessness, because it's still going to be after the 3 months when it's closed, they're going to be right back where they were before. So that was our long-term goal when we purchased that property, and we did just get a quote yesterday for a suppression system. He should have the actual number to us this afternoon, but he said it would probably be somewhere between like 50 and 70,000 to have everything that needed to be done to bring it up to code, which would make a lot more sense for some of those funds to be used for a permanent solution.
I mean, I would say depending on how that quote comes out, and if that's, that would be something I would look to staff to work through if that's
And of course,
a
the
better, more permanent solution.
Timeline.
As far as the
for-
staffing as well, that's our original quote, as Chief Burke said, did include 2 staff people of our personnel to be there to offer those services, to, ask them if they wanted help, and be there to provide assessments if they needed, so that we could give them case management or whatever kind of counseling that they need. But they advised us to take that second person off because the firefighter would be there. But again, he's not supposed to be starting till 10:30 at night and leaving at 5:30 in the morning. So that's not really.
Do we have any idea how long it would take to install a fire suppression system?
He's supposed to give us that this afternoon.
Okay.
As well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably like he said, maybe they could start in like 3 weeks, but I don't know how long.
Right, yeah, okay.
Question for Chief. Burke.
Thank you,
Chief, can you kind of just walk us through real quick, like the data points that several of the people mentioned? When officers encounter homeless, what do you ask? What do you look for before deciding where to take them? And
Well, when the officers pass, when they're on 3 to 11s, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, if we get a call of a suspicious person or we come across someone that's homeless, obviously, the officers speak with them, see if they're intoxicated, see if they need any medical help at the time. And, as we know, a lot of the homeless deal with, different issues such as substance abuse or mental health. And a lot of times, certain locations won't accept them if they've been drinking. Siloam was one of the few places, if somebody had been drinking that wasn't causing a problem, that would accept them. And they're not allowed to use drugs or alcohol at the location, but if they have been on some substance, they were allowed to take them there. So it's a nice feature for us. Without having that, that's what we were looking for. If my officers come across someone in the middle of the night, they can contact the warming shelter and say, yes, we have room, bring them on down, and they can drop them down. And as you see, last year when it got real cold for those couple weeks, we opened up the lobby doors for them, and we had at one time 15 people sleeping in there. I talked to Shalom, they would have anywhere from 25 to 30. So it's a resource for us, and it's a resource for COP, Victoria with One City. It's just a place for individuals that want to get out of the elements. We're not getting calls that they're on Central Avenue, behind businesses, behind dumpsters. It's just a place for them to get out of the elements for the cold months. That's all we were looking for.
excellent. Thanks, Chief.
Now, with regards to Victoria, how much time and what would her hours be down there? Would she just come down if there was someone who was interested or that you guys thought might want to talk to her? How does that work?
Well, she's currently going out twice a week. She's still involved with the QRT team. So she's spending a lot of time in the city with COP and also our quick response team. And the whole idea is making those relationships. At first, like I've said before, they see an officer in uniform and they don't want to speak to us. But since we've been doing this, Officer Owens and Wayne Birch, working with Victoria and working with other social groups, they're starting to build those relationships. And by building them, they're opening them up to them, they're trusting them a little bit more, and they're seeking treatment. I'm sure Victoria can give you a little bit more insight if you would like her to.
I would appreciate an update from Victoria if you could provide one.
I just want to say that we already currently work with Erica and Jessica from the Center for Mindful Healing. And if they had someone that was interested, all they would have to do is shoot me a text and I could come over the next morning, or someone from my team could come over.
I'm curious how we could make it all work with just the bodies that we have, the resources we have, with having that second person there during intake. Is that person you a couple days a week because you can get to know them too? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how
I think our staff already, our team is very familiar with their staff. They call my coworker Jason weekly, sometimes daily, for someone that they might have that was downtown and came over to their building that was seeking treatment and needs detox. We work with them to do that.
And can you provide us just with a little bit of a brief update about what you've been up to with the police department and just sort of the relationships and how effective you've been for this?
Yeah. So we were going over the numbers a couple weeks ago, and it looks like this is a couple weeks ago we had been out. I think it was 17 times and got 15 people into services, some kind of services that they needed. So that would be about once a week. Building amazing relationships with other treatment centers. We do have Woodhaven that is going to start going out with us during outreach. We've had Modern Psychiatry and Wellness that has went out with us. DeCoach comes out with us every week to provide services, and they've been doing amazing. They've been signing individuals up for insurance for their cell phones if they need it, because you would assume, everybody has like a free little phone, but they really don't. They don't have insurance. So DeCoach has been amazing working with us doing that.
And since you've sort of been boots on the ground, do you have any comments, or could you speak to what Councilman Muterspaw spoke to about people dropping people in town, other communities dropping people in Middletown.
So I think the incident that they're probably referring to was a treatment center in Cincinnati. One of the caseworkers, it was like 4 o'clock on a Friday, and they had Googled like a homeless shelter. And I think the Hope House popped up. So they literally just put them in an Uber and sent them up to the Hope House. But it's not a shelter like that. It's, you know, they have to call and make arrangements to come in during their walk-in hours, so.
You don't feel like that's happening all the time, or?
You guys, I personally, I don't know, but we do run into individuals that are transients, and they said, hey, we had one guy, he was originally from like Minnesota. He was a traveler, he said, and he went to Cincinnati, and then he was picked up and he was brought to Middletown. So, I mean, we do have people that are transients, and they just come through.
And they're being picked up and brought to Middletown.
This individual.
Because that's the difference between like someone, another community.
This individual
another
was.
municipality being responsible versus, you know, I've got a friend who lives in Middletown and that's how I ended up here.
Yeah.
So that's the specific.
Yes.
Okay. So other organizations. Okay. Without arrangements.
Yes.
Okay. Because that's the difference too. You know, if you've made arrangements with another organization, when we toured the Hope House, that was one of the things that they were talking about. There are people who, you know, throughout the organizations, to find that person the right help for them.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Another thing, different than that, is just getting dropped off without any phone calls or plan, and they don't know where to find resources or help. So I think that those are just specifics to note about the difference.
But we've been busy, and it's going really well. We've just, you know, you have the population now, like, are flagging Holly and Wayne down, like, hey, hi. Where before they didn't really want to talk to them. So it's been going really well. The consistency is paying off for sure. Because there's some in the beginning, they didn't want to talk to us. They wouldn't come out of their tents. They were hiding, and now they do come out. And, you know, they are talking about getting services. We have one female that, just for an example, she's in a relationship with another male and didn't want to talk about leaving in front of him. So, you know, when he wasn't around, she started crying. So she does want to leave. She just has to make a plan. Even though she's homeless, she still has to make a plan to get away from him. So the consistency is paying off. Anything else?
I have just more questions about the plan in place, but I appreciate all your hard work. Yeah, thank you. I assume this would be 7 days a week. Is that what it's the proposal?
Yeah, that would be correct. It'd be 7 days a week.
And then when it comes to the actual like structure and how it would be organized, is there room for families to go in certain areas?
Yeah, there's 2 separate restrooms, male and a female restroom. Then there's a little sink outside the restrooms too. And then there would be separate rooms that they could either house families or children, women. They could keep them separated. But then they have a very large room that would probably maintain most of the individuals.
And showers as well? Or is that a thing?
I don't believe there is a shower, no. But I don't think it's going to be used. The restrooms will be available to them, but not the showers, no.
Okay. And then will there be any drug and alcohol tests at the check-in?
I don't think there's going to be alcohol tests. We're going to be testing for COVID. We'll have the thermometers there to check their temperatures. We'll have sanitizer, masks. They'll all be given those. You know, the warming shelter, again, is if they have been drinking, we want to be able to treat them. And then it's nice with the fire personnel there in case somebody has been using something, they would be trained to do if something were to happen in the facility.
If an organization, a church, or any organization wanted to drop off chips and water bottles for somebody, do they just take them there? Or they come
Oh, absolutely.
to the police department, or
You could take them to the police department. We can get it there. You could take it right directly to the location. I'm sure they would welcome that. The reason we're structuring after the 6th is the Dream Center serves dinner So what we're trying to do is after the Dream Center serves the food, then the warming shelter's open for them to go to after, even though it's been fed, given a food. Several places in town serve different places. So we were just, again, looking for a location for them to get out of the cold weather.
Are there any restrictions being put in place at all on what would keep someone from being accepted as intake? Like,
Well, if they're completely, unable to care for themselves, intoxicated, or having some type of drug, then the officers are going to take them to the treatment, like the hospital, Kettering, or Atrium. And they're going to have rules and policy. Obviously, you can't be drinking while you're on facility. You can't be smoking. You can't be using drugs. So there's going to be rules and policies that they're going to monitor, and that's why they have a staff there that's going to make sure that those items aren't happening.
yeah, probably even more reason why we need two individuals. If someone's busy doing intake, there's no way they're going to be able to obviously monitor that part of it. I would love, I don't know, if obviously you're going to have a check-in form or sheet or whatever. I would love a metric added to that, or a column of some sort that asks them where they came from immediately prior to getting checked in, because obviously we want to try to track any of these situations where someone brought them to Middletown, because statement for the public, this is to serve Middletown homeless population. If anyone from another city, is dropping people off here, let's talk at a county level about how to solve the homeless problem, but don't bring them to Middletown so that we can serve them. We are compassionate people, and we just keep getting our doorstep, trampled on. So I know, and just as an update, I know Mr. Palaniuk's working on some solutions. I've spoken with the county level, the county administrator, Boyko, and Commissioner Dixon are both on board with trying to host a countywide meeting about this to try to come up with a more permanent solution that crosses county borders. So we are actually getting some headway on that, where we really haven't in the past. So hopefully we'll look forward to a discussion on a bigger level very soon about that. So wanted to update everybody on that end as well. I had a couple other, staffing for the firefighters. How difficult will it be to find? Is that going to be a strain to staff that?
It will be a challenge, but not one we can't overcome.
Okay, so Chief said it'll be a challenge, but one they can overcome, just if people couldn't hear that on the, okay. My biggest concern is the enabling part. I don't want, the last thing I want this to do is be an enablement to continue that lifestyle. So to me, it's very, very critical that we do have a second staff member there. I don't know if that's something the rest of council is interested in, but I would like to make a motion to amend the appropriation to include an additional, I believe it would be 6480.
I'll second that. Is that something you all can do for the same price for the second?
That's a good, or do you have the staffing to do it?
Yeah. Okay.
From the 5 to 9, we're just talking about from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and that, is that the most effective time frame? I guess I just made sense to me, but I probably should ask.
So Julie, in the law department, said that if we needed any amendments, for me to let her know, and that she would bring down amended legislation to change that appropriation to something that would accommodate 2 people. Is that where we're at? We're
Yeah,
gonna get
I
ready to
think we
vote,
can
but-
probably do that without her bringing that down. I think it's just a dollar amount change, right?
Just approve it that way.
Right.
Okay. All right, I just want, we're trying to be
I
responsive.
probably should be looking at you for, I think that's all we need to do, probably.
Yeah, that's fine.
When the motion gets made, we can, but amended to include an additional 6480 for the addition of a second person.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Is
curious.
that something that staff feels is appropriate? I'm just looking to staff to see.
Their original proposal, but when I reviewed it with the fire personnel there, I thought that would be sufficient. But if they want 2 for check-in, I'm all for it. That gives one checking somebody in and then one observing everybody else.
What would the plan be if one of you wanted to speak? What would the plan be for a second person? Just to check, would there be more hands-on talking to them about their situations, or?
them at once. I mean, if they're transporting them all together from the Dream Center or whatever, then yeah.
Or if they're gonna like.
Get closer to the microphone. Sorry, it doesn't pick up very wide.
If we had two people during that time, one person would be allocated specifically for intake purposes, and the other person would be, showing them more, spending more one-on-one time, showing them where the facility, the bathrooms facilities are, and where they would be sleeping, and possibly even talking to them about their
resources.
needs, like kind of doing a needs assessment, do you guys need anything? Do you need counseling? Do you need insurance? Do you need help getting signed up for food stamps or whatever assistance there is out there? Do you need help with any of those things?
Or if something does happen and somebody's in like a psychosis state or something, I mean, there definitely needs to be more than one person there because the firefighter isn't even supposed to come until 10:30.
So you said something about when the bus arrives, and I'll tell you from experience at Shalom, it can be very chaotic when the bus arrives.
I'm sure.
Because everybody's grabbing their bags and their stuff, and they're
Right.
trying to come in.
Yeah, and you have to try to watch where everybody's going.
There's a
once they
lot
come into
of
the
really
building.
strong, big personalities too,
yeah.
and so I know that is a concern for me with only one person.
Yeah.
Certainly. And I'm also curious, would you all be open to volunteers? If somebody wanted to say, sign up to volunteer during that time period also,
Definitely.
like at Shalom, we had, cards and board games and things for them to do.
Yeah.
And it's very humanizing to have someone there from the community who's
Yeah,
volunteering.
we would welcome that. The more, the better.
I would love to see that be part of the outreach and the information on this, to really invite people from the community to come down to the warming shelter during those hours. And if you want to bring food and board games or whatever, that was really meaningful for people.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, we obviously probably won't be able to be there, so the two staff for sure, and then anybody extra that wants to volunteer would be welcome, definitely. We also wanted to know if we could add an amendment for the utility costs, because,
Only because as we start talking about it and as we're listening, we're like, well, maybe there's going to be added costs that we did not take into consideration, like the emergency certificate of occupancy. If that's only going to be a certificate of occupancy, it's able to be used just for this emergency time period, then we would probably want to allocate that expense in this budget as well. It's not something that we're going to benefit from after the fact.
Acquiring the certificate or
yeah, because
getting
it's
it up
gonna
to
end at the
everything
end,
that goes-
and getting it up to code, the fire, the
Getting it up to
extra,
code, and then I think it's like $300 just to submit application for the certificate of occupancy.
but it's just a temporary emergency one, so once this
It does seem like we should waive the,
I
I'm not
believe,
really sure what the,
Yeah.
This is for the city.
The city benefits.
okay.
okay,
Mr. Palanick, I didn't hear you.
We'll waive the fees that they.
Okay.
okay.
I mean, I'd really like to see, obviously, you guys getting a quote on this whole fire suppression system and the fire alarm system would be really important, and depending on how soon they could get it, installed, if that is in the period that is before the end of this, that maybe we could use the fire through whenever that could start, and then, I don't know if that's even feasible. It could be totally after the end of this, but if that, I'd like, we have the opportunity to revisit this if we're mid-contract and you're able to get that system in, maybe we can not use all of those funds for
temporary solution.
personnel and put some of them towards a capital improvement.
Yeah, because
that
there
would
is a
benefit the
fire alarm
community.
system there too. I mean, that just needs to be hooked back up, so we could also get a price for that.
I mean, I would just be supportive of staff continuing to work with you and seeing if even mid-contract, that if there's a way to shift the dollars to capital improvements instead of staffing fees, I would personally be supportive of that. But, I mean, there's no way to approve it in that fashion tonight.
Right.
But I just am expressing interest in that communication line.
And also, the building's been vacant for 2 years prior to us getting it, so we really have no way of knowing what the utility bills are going to be. And since we've had it in our possession, it's really been unoccupied. So even the utility bills that we're paying now, that's with nobody utilizing the building. So
it-
I don't know if it's a possibility to just turn
Submit
in
the
those.
bills and get those.
If we can just turn those in,
That is a good question.
Like turn those into finance?
Utility reimbursement as opposed to.
as opposed to putting it in the
set
budget.
fixture, because we just put on, I mean, that figure that we put on was like 700 a month, but we just looked at the one from just this past month when no one's even in there and it's 1,500.
It's hard to say with utilities too, when they're gonna be higher or lower, depending on what the weather is like. So, I mean, I understand the concern.
I I mean, I'm supportive of us approving a threshold and having it reimbursed if that's a possibility. I don't know if staff has the ability to do that. I mean, the goal is obviously not for them to be out of pocket on this one.
Right. And we were trying to
Is
hurry
that what
and
we're
rush and
agreeing?
get
I mean,
this for you guys, because we
Mr.
really
Valonic,
believe in
do
it.
you have anything to add to that about the utility?
I think the way that this works, given the program and the funding, is we technically are paying them rent to have rent for the facility. And whatever the cost of that, all the costs that go into that can be established as rent. So we just have to have an authorization of enough money that would cover whatever we think are all the costs.
Is there any way to be able to submit if we go over, like,
Well, perhaps council may just want to appropriate an amount of money larger than this number, and then it will be for actual costs. You know, to not exceed that amount, but only to cover whatever these actual costs are.
I mean, I can't imagine it being over $1,000 a month in utilities to turn the heat and water on, so.
Well, it's already on, and our bill right now is 1,500, if you want to see.
1,500? Oh,
What's the square footage on this property?
Yeah.
4,000, 4860?
Well, the total property is 10,000, but that includes a basement too, and we're only using one side of it, so it's about 4,000 for just that.
And what's the above grade square footage, not including the basement, though? Okay, so,
this is energy, this is heat, this is the energy, this is your Duke bill?
Well, for this is for this month.
Yeah.
Before, but
So it's turning the heat on.
this is just for gas, as I'm looking at it.
well, if we could just do like.
Duke here would cover gas and electric, so.
I know,
Yeah.
but this bill right here just says,
Yeah, but the total amount should include
That's it.
gas and electric, I would think.
If we could just submit them,
yeah, I mean,
instead, just have an.
Or 95,
Amount for any overages.
95,000.
We're not trying to make a profit.
How about if council said a not to exceed 95,000? You'd be covering the additional 6,480 for staff and have an allotment of, what is that number, about 6,000 that could go toward utilities if necessary to cover whatever the final costs are.
Yeah, I mean,
Much more comfortable with
if
that.
that works for staff and,
You know.
I mean, I know this is the nature of throwing these together in a rapid fashion, so this is not typically how, I know we're,
We also had a lot of other things going on
Ducks in a
yesterday,
row.
so we were trying to do the best we could by getting it by the deadline.
okay, I mean, I think we can take that probably offline if we're able to approve a not to exceed amount, I think that would be appropriate, understanding that it's a reimbursement of, direct reimbursement of utilities. So our
So
changes,
We have you have an amendment on the floor, was to add the 6480.
let me revise the amendment, can I do
Okay.
that?
do we need an amendment if we're just increasing the amount not to exceed 95,000?
You should not, no. That'll be enough.
Okay.
You do need to amend the.
We need a motion to amend
Of the
the
ordinance.
Yeah, so I make a motion to amend the legislation to include a not to exceed amount of $95,000.
Well, can we do that if we haven't motioned to, no one's made a motion for the legislation to begin with?
Well, we've already made a motion to amend it, and then that was, so we're still in that conversation.
We haven't made a motion to approve it
That
as
was,
amended. Oh, okay.
right, but I mean, if we made a motion to approve the legislation, we'd have to rescind it anyway, right? I mean, I think we have to make a motion to amend it and.
First.
Yeah,
Then do
amend
an
it first and
emergency
then vote on
vote.
the amended.
And the difference is, this time we read it in its entirety before.
Okay.
Because typically, you're right, we make a motion to accept the legislation, then we amend it, and then approve it, but we're okay here. So, right now, on the floor, Mayor Condrey has made an amendment to change the not to exceed amount to $95,000.
Second.
Can I ask a question? Is that including the second person?
Yes, so that would,
And the utilities?
yeah, the
Sorry, I was looking at
legislation
that bill.
itself doesn't break it down, so it's just, I guess, understood that's the inclusion of the second person and then a direct reimbursement of utilities. Will you call the roll for us, Ms.
Yes.
Please, thank you.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
So, so just so I'm correct, the only thing we're adding is for the second person, so that brings the amount to
89,275. Yeah, and then we added the extra 6,000 or so for the additional utilities and gas. So that would give the second person from 5 to 9, and then it just can't go over 95,000 because they've already have, what, $700 a month? So I don't see utilities and gas going over that. So then they have 6,000 extra with the 95 to spend for utilities and gas and whatever else may come up.
Not that I'm not for this, but that seems like a lot of buffer, but.
So if the $1,500 a month holds true, that's at $4,500.
But they already have an original utilities that we're paying on here already.
Right. So,
You may not spend all the
Yeah, it's a not to exceed. It's only reimbursable for the actual amount. It wouldn't be, yeah, it's only the potential so that there's that cushion.
Yes.
okay.
So we have the legislation amended. Now we need to have a
Waive the charter.
waiver.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring reading on 2 separate days and to declare ordinance number O-2022-13 an emergency measure and read one time only.
I'll second.
Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw.
yes.
Okay, now we need an official vote on the legislation as amended, correct?
I would like to make a motion to approve the ordinance as presented with amendment.
I'll second.
Ms. Skank, please.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes. Okay. I believe that's all we have on the agenda for today. Anything, well, I guess we really can't talk about anything else because it's a special meeting, so that's all, folks. We will adjourn until the 1st of February at 5:30 PM here in council chambers. Until then, blue skies over Middletown.